Good day. How can we not start the show with gold? Everybody wants to know how far it can go, where they can start considering shorts, and when will the momentum to the top dry up. At the moment, the high for the week was $1,511, but we can see that this possible inverse head and shoulder that we spoke about so many times have now completely played out to the top. So the other thing is we can draw in horizontal lines to see where the possible next resistance or support might be. But what I want to do is I want to make use of Fibonacci levels, one of my favorite indicators to use to identify support and resistance levels. But not only is it a nice tool to use, it often correlates with other possible support and resistance lines, trend lines that one have drawn in. So we can see here that the gold price is currently very close to that 61.8% level. In fact, it tested it and retraced from it, and that is waiting at the $1,505. Now, this is a weekly graph for gold. So we can assume that if the gold price continues to consolidate above $1,505 on a Friday close, that the momentum to the top will continue. So my next strong resistance is waiting at the $1,552, and then the Fibonacci level there at $1,628. But when will my first sign of weakness appear? My first sign of weakness will be here around $1,420 if I round it up. So around $1,420, that will be my first warning that, hey, this instrument might be running out of steam. It might be a place to take profit. Now, any trader or investor loves it when an instrument rallies like that. And I mean, it's up about 10 or 20%. But the problem with that is, for technical analysis, is the candles become so large that it makes it very risky to identify a trailing stop or a stop loss. Because the candles are so high, it makes it very risky. So at the moment, we can assume that above $1,505, the momentum to the top will be in place, and only below that $1,420, my first sign of weakness will appear. We must also remember that the fact that the gold price is trading above that 40-week moving average tells me for the long-term sentiment, for the long-term investors, the sentiment towards this instrument is positive. Yes, it is overbought on the stochastic, and yes, it's overbought on so many other oscillators, but we can see that those two moving averages within the indicator is still showing upwards. The candles show me that the momentum to the top is in place. Let's have a look in that same sphere. Let's have a look at Sibanye Gold. We've previously mentioned and we've spoken about that inverse head and shoulder formation, and that inverse head and shoulder formation is now in play. And we can see that the conservative target is very close here to around this horizontal line that I've drawn in there, and that is around 22 Rand 21. And if the full formation play out, it can take this instrument to Sibanye Gold to around 27 Rand 84. So any of the new viewers, maybe let me just highlight where this inverse head and shoulder formation is in play. And when that neckline there was changed into a support, that was when the confirmation of the formation was on the table. We can see that the momentum to the top is in place. But we know not only is Sibanye a gold counter, it's also a platinum counter. So we have to also look at the platinum price as well as the rand. And at the moment, we know that the weakening trend of the rand is in place. Where will Sibanye start to warn? The same problem. Because I have such long candles, the first sign of weakness will only be below 19 Rand and 11 cent on a Friday close. In other words, because this is a weekly graph, by Friday's close, okay, Friday's going to be a public holiday, but in a normal week, on a Friday or on a Thursday close, in this case, below 19 Rand and 11, should Sibanye retrace. That will be my first sign of weakness or confirmation that maybe it's time to take profits. But we know the full target is 22 Rand 12 for this formation. And we also know that formations doesn't always play out completely. Sometimes they just play out a portion of it and then retrace and then maybe continue with a new pattern. we mustn't forget that there is a massive, or there is a window, I can't call it a massive window, there's a window that is waiting on Sibanye on a weekly graph between 34 Rand 18 and 34 Rand and 6 cent. And the rules with windows are they always get closed. It can take days, months, years, even decades. But a window on a weekly graph weighs quite heavy. And it's a level that we can, with a fair amount of certainty, maybe write down on a piece of paper. It might not even happen this year, but at some stage, that window will be closed. The momentum to the top is beautiful in place. Yes, my stochastic is overbought, but look, that blue line, the shorter moving average, look like it's running out of steam. But my confirmation of a turnaround would be when there's a divergence or a break of those two moving averages to the downside. That is not yet on the card, so the momentum to the top is in place. Pan Africa, another. Tony wanted us to look at Pan Africa, but another gold counter that just flew to the top. When that level there around 2 Rand 14 changed into a support, I mean, there was no stop to this share price. And this consolidation base that I've highlighted here between 2 Rand 14 and that support there that waited at a 1 Rand 61 is now playing out to the top. So the next strong resistance that this share price might reach or might try to test is here waiting there around 2 Rand 65. And we can use that shadow around 2 Rand 85 and then that one there around 3 Rand 11. When will my first sign of weakness appear? Again, when the share price might start to consolidate below 2 Rand 14. Only then will I be a little bit more concerned and say, hey, maybe the traders are taking profit here. Maybe it's time for me to do the same. But also remember, this is a weekly graph and the 40-week moving average is still a support. That means the long-term sentiment towards this share is still positive. The momentum to the top is in place. That 40-week moving average is a support. So at the moment, no concern around this share. Kumba. Charles wanted us to look at Kumba, a share that I feel sometimes are on steroids in this market because it sometimes just ignores all technical indicators and just plummets or rallies no matter what the probabilities are. So at the moment, we can see that, yes, it's already broken downwards. It's not really, Kumba is not really in oversold territory yet. But what is the biggest concern here is the fact that this 40-week moving average has changed into a resistance. And that normally tells and rings the bell, the first bell for long-term investors to say, be careful that the sentiment towards this share might turn to negative. And look, to have a look at all these upper shadows on the candles. And that already implies that there is sellers that have taken profit. Now, there's a strong support waiting there around 396 Rand 26, and that will be the test for Kumba. That will be the test to see, can the share find enough buyers to lift this share price again to higher levels? We can see here in that week of the 13th of May 2019, the share retraced. It tested that level around 394 Rand 86. It could find enough buyers to lift it to higher levels, and it did so until it found resistance there again at around 529 and retraced. This gravestone doji candle implies a selling pressure. So we must have a look and see what it does there around 395 if it can find enough buyers. But if I change this to a daily graph, the picture changes a little bit. And we can see even here that on a daily graph, this share is extremely oversold. But look how my blue line on the stochastic have tried to test the red line or the orange line, kept it at a resistance, and it looks almost as if it still wants to decline to lower levels. So that implies that even in oversold territory, this share is very weak. It can't break through that orange line. So only when that blue line starts to break through the orange line, that would be my first confirmation to say, this share might turn around. Have a look at the candles on the price action and see if you can have confirmation of maybe a turnaround pattern or a turnaround candle. So at the moment, my stochastic is showing downwards, no turnaround yet. I can see on my price action, both for the last 3 days, on all three of my candles, I've got long upper shadows on my candles, which implies selling pressure. selling pressure, selling pressure, selling pressure. It tells me that within every bounce, the sellers are more in control and they manage to pull the share price to higher levels. So we'll have to wait for a turnaround candle, maybe a dragonfly candle or a tweezer bottom 2 candle pattern, some sort of indication that the buyers are getting stronger than the sellers at the moment. The momentum to the bottom for Kumba is in place. Let's have a look at Merafe. Charles also wanted us to look at Merafe. And Merafe is currently trapped within a descending channel. And I want to go back to a weekly graph for our long-term investors, because we know that those are the ones that are the most favorite. And we can see that, yes, the long-term sentiment to Merafe is negative at the moment. Why? Because it is trading below the 40-week moving average. But look how closely that 40-week moving average is also to that upper band of the descending channel. So that implies that first, Merafe has to change that 40-week moving average into a support. In other words, the share needs to start to consolidate above R1.27. And then it needs to change this upper band of that descending channel, running there around to R1.28 into a support, before I can say the optimism is on the table, the optimism around the formation is on the table. Maybe we're seeing a turnaround here. However, Charles, what is positive for me about Merafe is the fact that the share for the last 4 weeks have found support there around R1.15, which is higher than the support it found there around the week of the 10th of June 2019. And that was when the low was at around R1.21. So that is a little bit optimistic for me about Merafe, is the fact that the support levels that they have supported for the last 4 weeks is a little bit higher than the support year around that 18th of June. And that is positive. I don't see a turnaround candle yet. The only optimism at the moment is a possible optimism is within that descending channel. But then, as I said, that upper band and the 40-week needs to change into a support. Yes, my stochastic has turned around, and maybe that is your first hint that the next action, my price action will follow. This might be your first sign that the optimism is soon to be seen.